Let's start with the basics. Infection is when harmful agents invade our body tissues, multiply, and cause a reaction. This reaction isn't just from the organisms themselves, but also from the toxins they produce. Understanding infection means recognizing how these disease-causing agents interact with our body. Also, terms like infectious, transmissible, and communicable diseases all point to illnesses that can spread from one organism to another. So, infection is really about this dynamic between invading agents and our body's response. Now, it's important to clarify some key ideas about infection. First, infection isn't the same as disease. Infection is the presence and multiplication of pathogens, while disease is the body's response causing symptoms. Also, infection and infestation differ. Infestation typically involves external parasites, whereas infection refers to internal microbial invasion. Lastly, ecological relationships like commensalism, parasitism, and mutualism play roles in infection dynamics, influencing how organisms coexist or harm each other. These concepts help us understand the complexity behind infections. When we look at infections, they come in many types, each with unique characteristics. For instance, a primary infection is the first time a host encounters a pathogen. Sometimes a secondary infection follows, often involving a different organism. Reinfection happens when the same pathogen infects again after recovery. Cross-infections spread between individuals, while localized infections stay confined to one area. Generalized infections spread widely in the body. There are also atypical infections with unusual symptoms, latent infections that lie dormant, subclinical infections without symptoms, and infections acquired in hospitals or through medical procedures. Recognizing these types helps us grasp the diverse ways infections can affect us. Infections can also be categorized based on where they occur in the body. For example, urinary tract infections affect the urinary system. Skin infections involve the skin. Respiratory tract infections impact the lungs and airways, and odontogenic infections relate to the teeth and surrounding areas. What's crucial here is that the mode and source of transmission play a big role in determining where an infection takes hold. Understanding the location helps in diagnosing and treating infections effectively. Let's explore how infections develop through key stages. It starts with transmission, where the pathogen finds a reservoir and uses specific modes to reach a new host. Once inside, the organism must enter and evade local defenses, which is no small feat. Then, it adheres to cell surfaces to establish itself, grows, and multiplies. This leads to the manifestation of disease, where symptoms appear. Eventually, the infection resolves or terminates. Each step is critical, and understanding this pathogenesis helps us target interventions to stop infections before they cause harm. Infections come from different sources. Some are endogenous, meaning they originate within the body itself. Others are exogenous, coming from outside sources like other humans, animals, insects, soil, water, or food. For example, carriers can transmit infections without showing symptoms. And environmental factors like contaminated water or soil can introduce pathogens. Knowing these sources is vital for preventing and controlling infections effectively. Infections spread through various modes of transmission, each with its own pathway. Direct or indirect contact transfers pathogens physically between hosts. Ingestion involves swallowing contaminated food or liquids. Vector-borne transmission happens when insects or animals carry pathogens. Iatrogenic transmission occurs during medical procedures. Inhalation lets pathogens enter through breathing airborne particles. Inoculation means direct injection into the body. And transplacental transmission passes infections from mother to fetus during pregnancy. Recognizing these modes helps us understand how infections move and how to block them. Virulence factors are the tools pathogens use to cause infection and disease. For instance, the route of infection determines how bacteria enter the host. Adhesion involves pili that help bacteria stick to cells. Invasiveness refers to enzymes that let bacteria penetrate tissues. Antiphagocytic properties, like capsules, protect bacteria from immune cells. Toxins are harmful substances released to damage host cells. And finally, the infectious dose is the number of bacteria needed to establish infection. Together, these factors explain why some infections are more severe or harder to treat. Our body's response to infection is complex and involves several layers. Immunity includes innate or natural defenses and adaptive or acquired responses. Adaptive immunity further divides into antibody-mediated, which targets pathogens in fluids, and cell-mediated immunity, which attacks infected cells. Inflammation is another key response, with pyogenic inflammation producing pus and granulomatous inflammation forming granulomas. Cytokines act as signaling molecules coordinating these defenses. Understanding these responses reveals how our body fights infections and why sometimes inflammation can cause damage. Finally, let's consider the epidemiology of infections, the study of how infections spread and persist. Pandemic infections spread globally, affecting many people worldwide. Epidemics are widespread infections in specific regions. Endemic infections persist locally over time. Emerging infections are new or rapidly increasing diseases, while re-emerging infections are those previously controlled but now returning. Sporadic infections occur irregularly and infrequently. This classification helps public health efforts by showing patterns of infection spread and guiding prevention strategies.